I imagine that there's been a lot of um, dedications and naming of Rabbi Jonathan Omerman of blessed memory in these last weeks, and I just want to sort of add my voice to that before beginning to really dedicate this, for at least for me, this sit, to Jonathan's memory. And I won't tell the actual story, but just to say when I was in a narrow place and not yet committing to Judaism or rabbinical school in a particular way, I was visiting my grandmother in Leisure World in Southern California, and I heard there was this wise man who ran a center in Los Angeles, and I went to visit Jonathan, and it was a real turning point that I'm grateful for. So I'm just thinking of Jonathan and his really idiosyncratic and beautiful and amazing teachings as we begin to practice together today. So I want to sort of try something new, in some ways, and those, I imagine we all teach in different contexts or have that capacity to share. It's always for me more exciting to teach something that I haven't, that I'm sort of just beginning to wrestle with or to experiment with. So in that spirit, I've been reading. So it's Parshat Bamidbar, right? As Mark said, it's the 42nd day of the Omer. It's also the beginning of the book of Numbers. And for those who were fans of Leviticus, it sort of continues. We thought we were in the clear, but it continues into the book of Numbers. It's the same priestly voice. And there's a lot of sections at the beginning of the book of Numbers with, lists and names and numbers and categories. So usually, to be honest, I skip these sections, right? There's some sense of let's get to the narrative, right? The juicy stuff. And this time, sort of an experiment that I've been working with Leviticus and with limited success, and now into the book of Numbers. So first of all, I'm trying not to skip it, to actually read these sections and sit with them, which is hard enough. And secondarily, and this is the point that I'm most interested in sort of sharing and practicing with together, this is even harder, to not give what I'm reading over to the meaning-making mind to make sense from these lists or to uncover narrative that I imagine is hidden there. So for instance, to take there's a fragment of a verse at the beginning of the Torah portion that says, from the tribe of Asher, Pagiel, son of Ochran. The practice is to just let that verse be what it appears to be. No making gematria or special meaning from Pagiel's name, or wondering if he is connected to Korach's lineage, just letting Pagiel, whoever he was, be Pagiel. Or to take another example from a verse early on here in Numbers, those enrolled from the tribe of Simeon, 59,300. So just practicing letting it be 59,300, to say, yes, it's a good number, names and numbers. And I think on one hand, there's something, fantastically specific about names and numbers. And so this is, I think, that really this fascinating practice to just sit with this verse or one like it and resist narrative interpretation or interpretation really of any kind. Just, if anything, maybe a different kind of meta practice, like bless this name, Pagiel, bless this number, 59,300. And it sounds comical in some sense, but I think it's actually quite at least potentially profound. And I notice great resistance to doing this, right? To sitting with a verse and resisting narrative interpretation or interpretation of any kind. Because, right, we're such narrative creatures. I desperately want this verse to mean something, to be able to situate it in a story. And, why resist at all the tendency to interpret? What's wrong with that? And we humans, we those of us in Jewish community, right, we're storytelling creatures. We're geared to really privileging the narrative as if it's the most important piece. And we seem to be geared to finding meaning within the narrative. So usually we celebrate this storytelling aspect of being human. And Lord knows in so many ways it's worthy of celebration. But it's only one way of being, right? So maybe there's this way of reading Torah that we've forgotten, that maybe there's this old way of seeing that we've lost access to, and just skipping to the story parts. And it's hard to recover this old way of seeing because we subscribe to the idea that we are, collectively evolving, becoming more conscious. But what if there's unseen worlds all through the Torah that are unlocked by a different key than narrative? And maybe, what if these parts of the Torah are actually the holiest parts and we don't yet know how to read them? I think in this spirit, the poet Jack Gilbert has a line in one of his poems. The poem itself is called "The Forgotten Dialect of the Heart," where he says, "When the thousands of mysterious Sumerian tablets were translated, they seemed to be business records. But what if they are psalms?" Meaning, I think, what if those business records are a different kind of psalm that we no longer are able to access or understand because it comes in a form that we can't tell a story about? So, and here's where I want to turn it towards our sitting practice, because in many ways, Torah study is just, the way that we train ourselves to, we have all these rules about studying Torah, or these teachings or these guides. And I think really Torah study is just a way of training to sit with one another, sit with ourselves with that same level of curiosity and possibility. So what if, in a similar sense to how we might sit with a verse like this in the book of Numbers, right? These lists, these names, these numbers, maybe there's a way of being human and relating to our humanity that we've forgotten because of our always skipping to narrative. What if there's unseen worlds inside us that are unlocked by a different key than storytelling? So I think our impulse to telling stories is this double-edged sword, and we find this out when we sit. The common denominator of what distracts us, fantasy and regret and planning our day, is that they are all stories. We tell a story about ourselves, endless stories about ourselves. We tell a story about the others in our lives. So I think we can, and this is sort of what I want to leave us with as we begin to turn towards the silence. Now we can sit with these opening verses and just notice what arises, right? Like, what would it be like to make our mantra, "Those enrolled from the tribe of Simeon, 59,300. It's a very unromantic mantra, but what would it be like to sit with that, as it is in its kind of inchoate, mysterious, form? Or we can ask ourselves opening questions that help loosen this habituated storytelling and meaning-making impulse. So, like, what if I've been reading the Torah completely wrong all these years? So for me, that's a very exciting thought. And even more exciting is, what if I've been reading myself wrong all these years? Or my partner, or my child or my parent. Also very exciting, I think. And to not rush to fill in an alternative way just yet. I think when we do that, it returns us, to the felt immediacy of our sitting practice, because there's nowhere else to turn. If we stop interpreting, right? We put down that interpretive impulse, which has been so honed in terms of the Jewish teachings, right? If we put it down, there's nowhere else to turn. It's like there's no escape but noticing what is happening in our immediate awareness. Pagiel, 59,300, right? Okay, pain in the right leg, vague sense of sadness or foreboding, self-consciousness. And it's like it returns us and to resist. Perhaps another way of putting it is interpretation is also resisting the judging of such noticing. So what I want to invite us to go into the silence now. We'll get to sit for about 10 minutes. With the intention of very much just whether we're working with one of those kind of sample verses or not, really the intention to just sit with what's before us and its plainness and its mystery, what's inside us and its plainness and its mystery. Not interpreting, not droshing. Letting it be, and in the act of letting it be, God willing, there's, a percolating, a curiosity, a sense of possibility.